Do you feel like you have been missing out on blessings? If so, stay tuned and I will teach you how to become open to receiving today. What is going on, everyone? We are back for another episode of Prospering with Christ. I hope that you had a wonderful week last week, and I hope that this week will be just as amazing to you as well. So, for today's episode, we are discussing how to become open to receiving. And I wanted to talk about this today because receiving is one of the key aspects to see God move in your life. If you go to Mark chapter 11, verse 24, it says, I tell you, you can pray for anything, and if you believe that you received it, it will be yours. It doesn't just say have faith. It doesn't just say believe. It says believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Some of us have adapted to giving so much that we don't know how to receive anymore. The only thing that we know how to do is give. We always think that we're supposed to be the one helping others. We always think that we're supposed to be the one blessing others. We always think that we're supposed to be the one guiding others. We have become so adapted to being the giver. We have become so adapted to allowing God to use us to serve other people that we forgot how to receive things. We forgot how to be on the other side of giving. And for some of us, the problem with our circumstances, it's not that God doesn't hear us. It's not that God doesn't love us. It's not that God isn't moving. It's that we block every single blessing that God tries to send our way because we do not know how to receive. We feel uncomfortable with receiving. We feel uneasy with getting blessed. And so as much as we pray to God and we tell God, I want this blessing. I want you to do this. I want you to move in our life. Every time that he tries, we show him by our actions that we don't really want it because we don't know how to receive what he's trying to give to us. You are not going to get your blessing until you learn how to actually receive a blessing. Because one thing that I learned about God and one thing that we should all know about God is that he is a gentleman. He gave us free will. He's not going to force a blessing on you. He's not going to force you to accept what he's trying to do. If you reject it, he will respect you. If you reject it, he will respect what you said you want to do, what you said you want to have. He is not going to force you. And some of us have been sitting here and we have been wondering why God isn't moving, why we aren't seeing our prayers be answered, why we aren't experiencing miracles, why we aren't seeing blessings in our life. And God is saying, I have been trying to bless you. I have been trying to help you. I have been trying to guide you, but you keep blocking me because you don't know how to receive. You have this guard up. You only know how to be the giver. Or maybe you're just not used to experiencing someone helping you. Maybe you grew up hard. Maybe you had to figure everything out on your own. Maybe you were the one who had to be tough for everybody else. You had to be tough for your siblings. You had to be tough for your friends. You had to play hard. And so now it's hard for you to be on the other side of giving. Now it's hard for you to know how to receive. But God is saying, forget those things. I know that you're used to it. I know that you're used to being tough. I know that you're used to being the one that's always left out. I know that you're used to being the one who had to go the hard way and never had any help. But I'm trying to transform you and I'm trying to teach you something new. I'm trying to help you adapt to something new, but you have to work with me. You have to stop blocking everything that I am trying to send you, and you have to learn how to become open to receiving. If we want to become open to receiving, we are going to have to let go and release our pride. One of the ways that God sends us blessings is by using other people. He'll use other people to give you an instruction. He'll use other people to guide you along the way. He'll use other people to plant seeds of wisdom inside you. And sometimes he'll use other people to give you the blessing that you've been praying for. And when you have a lot of pride, it is hard for you to accept things from other people. You feel like, who are you to try and give me wisdom? Who are you to guide me, to lead me? Who are you to try and help me? Let's say that you have money problems and God is sending somebody to bless you and give you the money. You have this attitude of, I don't need help. I'm good. I don't need nothing from you. And your pride is blocking the blessing. You think that you're rejecting this person when in actuality, you're rejecting God, because God sent this person to bless you. God sent this person to help you, but you have so much pride. Getting help from somebody else makes you feel vulnerable. Getting help from somebody else makes you feel weak, and you reject it. And then you go on and you pray and you ask God for the answer, and you ask God to send you help, and you ask God to send you an instruction. And then you start getting frustrated with him because you're wondering why he isn't speaking to you. You're wondering where the answer is, where the blessing is. And God is saying, I already gave it to you. I sent that person to help you, but you have so much pride that you couldn't receive it. You have so much pride that you couldn't handle somebody else helping you along the way, somebody else having the answer and blessing you with it. God put us on this earth to be his servants. We are supposed to serve and help other people. He wants to use us to get to other people. And sometimes he's going to use you as a servant, and sometimes he's going to use other people to serve you. And you have adapted to being the servant. You have adapted to being the one that he uses to get through to other people, but you don't know what to do when God tries to use another one of his children to get through to you. And God is saying, if you want to see my hand move in your life, if you want to actually experience blessings, you have to be open to the way that I want to do it. Sometimes I might speak directly to you. Sometimes I might give you the plan myself. Sometimes I might bless you directly. And other times I might use my servants as vessels to help you. And so you have to let go of your pride, and you have to become open to receiving blessings through other people. Another reason why we struggle to receive blessings from God is because we have this mentality of thinking that we have to work hard for everything. Some of us come from environments that raised us up by telling us that anything we wanted in life, we had to work for. We heard sayings like nothing comes easy. You need to hustle. You need to grind. You need to sweat. You need to see blood. You need to cry tears. You need to work extremely hard in order to see change. And on top of that, we also were taught that we had to get it out the mud by ourselves with no help. And this mentality makes it very hard for us to receive blessings because it goes against the way that God does things. See, although we may go through some hardships on our journey with God, although we may go through some challenges and some storms on our journey with God, God does not operate in hard work. When you really think about it, a lot of the instructions that God give you are very simple. A lot of the things that God give you are very easy. It doesn't require you to hustle and grind and get it out the mud with all these blood, sweat, and tears. It doesn't require you to go through this journey alone, to go through this journey with no help, to go through this journey with no one to cry on. And so when God tries to give you blessings his way, you block it because his way goes against what you were taught. His way goes against the way that you feel like things should happen. You feel like things should be hard. So when he gives you an easy step, you reject it. You feel like you got to work so long, so hard for a blessing. But when God tries to give you a blessing that you didn't work for, you reject it because you feel like that's not right. You feel like that's not how things should be done. And God is saying you have to learn how to break what you were taught. You have to learn how to break what you were raised up in. And you have to learn how to adapt to the way that He does things. There is a reason why the Bible says that when you make the decision to turn your life to Christ, that God is going to transform you and He's going to make you new. And the reason why is because the ways and the things that you were taught, the mentalities, the habits, and the mindsets that you were raised up in is different than the ways that you're supposed to be operating in when you follow Him. And God is saying you have to break what you were taught. You have to break what you know, and you have to fully follow Him and fully adapt to the way that He wants to do things. Another reason why we struggle to receive is because we feel like it's not God that we're receiving this thing from. I want to tell you a story. A couple years ago, someone that I know was going through a financial hardship. And this financial hardship got so bad to the point where they didn't have the money to pay their rent and they were going to have to move out of their apartment. When they were moving out of their apartment, they kept having this thought, and this thought was telling them to go and talk to their neighbor. But they put the thought off because they felt like it was just them. They felt like they were trying to manipulate the situation. And so they never talked to their neighbor. They moved out of this apartment. And 3 months down the line, they got a new job and they were able to get back on their feet. After they got back on their feet, they ran into this neighbor, and this neighbor was asking them like, hey, why did you move out of your apartment? So, they told them about their financial hardship and how they didn't have the money to pay their rent. And their neighbor literally told them, they said, I wish that you would have told me that, because if you told me that, I would have paid your rent for the next 3 months. Keep in mind that I said 3 months later, they got a better job and was able to get back on their feet. So God had it set up where He had already had someone who was going to cover and provide for them financially until He brought them to this job that they were assigned to. But because they kept putting off the thought, they kept thinking that it was just them. They kept thinking that they were manipulating the situation. They missed out on a blessing because they were not open to what God was telling them. They were not receiving the instruction that God was giving them. If you have an opportunity, if you have an idea, if you have a thought and you are struggling and you don't know if that thought is coming from God, instead of putting it off, instead of being disobedient, instead of not doing it, seek God and ask Him for confirmation, because you do not want to miss out on something that God is trying to give you, something that God is trying to bless you with, because you feel like it's not Him who's speaking to you. Are you enjoying this episode so far? Is this episode teaching you how to become open to receiving blessings? If so, then I want you to do me 2 favors. Favor number 1, I want you to leave a review. You can leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this episode. Leave an honest review and let me and others know how you are enjoying the show. And favor number 2, if you know anyone who has been struggling with being open to receiving blessings from God, then I want you to send this episode to them. Let this episode motivate and encourage them the same way that it is motivating and encouraging you. Now let's get back to the show. When it comes to the topic of receiving things from God, you have to be open to receiving more than just blessings. Yes, in some situations, God is trying to send you a blessing. You could be praying for money and He's trying to send you that money. You could be praying for a car and He's trying to send you that car. You can be praying for a marriage and He's trying to send you that marriage, or He's trying to send you that spouse. But sometimes God is trying to send us more than blessings. And sometimes when we're just focused on the blessing, we miss the other things that God is trying to send us. In some situations, God may be trying to send you wisdom and instructions. He's not directly sending you the blessing, but He's sending you something that's going to lead you to the blessing. He's sending you something that once you be obedient, once you take that step, once you actually do the thing that He's telling you to do, then you're going to see the blessing. Just think about the story that I just told you of the person I knew. He did not just send the person money to cover them for the next 3 months until he blessed them with a job. He sent them an instruction. He told them to go and talk to their neighbor. So sometimes you have to not only be open to receive, you have to be open to receive whatever it is that God is trying to send you, because sometimes he's not just going to send you the blessing directly. Sometimes the blessing is not just going to come and knock at your door. Sometimes he's going to give you the wisdom on how to get it. He's going to give you instructions on what to do. And sometimes it may be wisdom not only on how to get it, but how to sustain it, how to steward it, how to manage it. So when you're becoming open to receiving, don't just become open to receiving the blessing, become open to receiving instructions from him, become open to receiving guidance from him, and become open to however he chooses to send that guidance. Because in the story that I just told you, he chose to give that instruction directly to my friend. But in some situations, he might use other people. In some situations, he might use people that you don't even expect him to use. He might use people that you wouldn't want to learn something from. He might use people that you don't like. He might use people who you might feel that you are better than. You have to become open to receiving his way. And that means if he chooses to send you the instruction, if he chooses to send you a blessing through a person, then you are open to it. Because one thing that I didn't tell you about the person in my story, their neighbor was not somebody that they really liked. Them and that neighbor really didn't get along that well. They had problems with each other. They didn't really like each other. They were just cordial with each other. So what if God is trying to use somebody that you don't really care for, you don't really like that much? You just have a hi and bye conversation with them, or maybe it's a stranger on the street. What would you do if God is trying to use them to bless you with something, whether it's a blessing directly or it's a word of instruction or some wisdom? What would you do if God is using someone that you don't really care for? You have to be open to how God chooses to bless you. And you have to be open to opportunities and open doors. Because like I said, for some of us, we have this mentality of feeling like we got to work hard for everything. So when God opens a door that we're not qualified for, when God gives us an opportunity that we don't normally get opportunities for, when God makes the road easy, when there are other people who have been working hard, they have been working for years to get an opportunity like this, and we only been working on this for a month. We only been working on this for 2 months, and God blessed us before he blessed them. We feel unqualified. We feel undeserving. And so we become hesitant to walk through that door. But God is saying, will you become open to what I am trying to give you? Will you become the receiver? Will you walk through the door that I am opening up for you? No matter how it comes, no matter who it comes through, no matter what I say to you, will you walk in full obedience and become open to receiving what I have for you? In order for you to walk through the door to your blessing, you have to become open to receiving. And the first way for you to do that is by asking God to help you take on his mentality. Like I said, the reason why we have this mentality of feeling like we have to work hard for everything, and we have to hustle, and we have to grind, and we have to do it on our own and get it out the mud is because of our environment. And if you ask God to help you take on his mentality, he will help you strip that mentality that you currently have off of you and adapt to the one that he needs to give you. Adapt to the one that you need in order to see his hand move in your life. The second thing that you want to do is every time that you receive a blessing, whether it's a blessing directly, whether it's a word of wisdom or instruction, whether it's an opportunity or an open door or a new way of doing things, whenever you receive a blessing from God, instead of rejecting it, instead of denying it, show gratitude for it. When you praise God and you show him that you are grateful for the things that he has done for you, you open doors for him to do more. If you want to actually see God's hand move in your life, if you want to actually live a life that is full of blessings, is not full of struggle, is not full of hardships, is not full of storms, if you want to actually see success in your life, then you're going to have to start praising God for the things that he does. See, a lot of us, we only focus on the negative. We only focus on the things that go wrong. And then when God blesses us with an opportunity, when God blesses us with a blessing, when God blesses us with a word of instruction, we overlook it. We might show gratitude in the moment, but then the next day we're back to complaining. But if you would stop rejecting the things that God is trying to do for you, and if you would just start to show gratitude to him for what he has done, for what he has given you, then you will open doors for him to not only bless you in that area, but start to bless you with more. Have you ever dreamt of making your voice heard and sharing your message with the world? Well, it's time to turn that dream into a reality by starting your very own podcast. I understand that many aspiring podcasters are held back by the worries of cost, complexity, and the time it takes to launch a podcast. That is why I'm so excited to introduce my new training program that has all the tools and knowledge you need to help you create and launch your own podcast completely for free. My training will guide you through every single step of your podcasting journey. You will learn how to plan, release, market, and grow your podcast from start to finish. So if you're ready to take a leap of faith and share your message with the world, click the link in the description below to access the training. Now let's get back to the show. The next thing that you want to do is whenever you get a blessing or you get a word of instruction or you get an idea, instead of rejecting it, use discernment and ask God for confirmation. Don't just reject it because you feel like it might be you. Don't just reject it because you don't think that this is right. Ask God to confirm himself. God, did you send this person to help me? God, did you give me this word of instruction? God, I had the idea to go and talk to my neighbor about my situation. Did that idea come from you? Stop going off of what you think. Stop going off of how you feel and start asking God to confirm himself. Because if God said it, he has no problem saying it again. If God said it, he has no problem confirming it to you until you finally get it and you're confident enough to move into what he told you to do. And for some situations, you may not be able to take a moment and ask God for confirmation. Because for some situations, you may have to make a decision immediately. And so in those situations, you really want to hone in and use discernment. Does this look like God? Does this sound like God? Is this something that God would tell me to do? Is this something that God will give me? What is the long-term effect of me moving into this step? What is the long-term effect of me acting on this idea? Use discernment to tell if it's God. And as you take that step, check your spirit. Do you feel troubled in your spirit? Do you feel uneasy in your spirit? Or do you feel at peace? Because if you feel troubled, if you feel uneasy, then that could be God saying, hey, I know you have to make a decision right now, but I'm speaking to you and I'm telling you that this is not me. Use discernment no matter what. And the last thing that you can do is that when someone tries to give you something, whether it's a word of wisdom or whether it's a blessing, if you feel like you don't need it, instead of rejecting it, take it in and pass it on. See, the Bible says that when we give, we are blessed. And when you reject something that someone is trying to bless you with, you are blocking a blessing with them from God. I was reading a book called The 9-Figure Mindset, and it said, refusing to accept a compliment or bonus not only slights the giver, but also affirms that you believe you had nothing to do with your success. Accepting compliments allows the other person to give something to you, and that's important. When you offer a gift, don't you want the other person to receive it with appreciation? You have to think about more than yourself. How does you rejecting this wisdom, rejecting this blessing, rejecting whatever this person is trying to give you, how does you rejecting that affect them? How does you rejecting that affect their walk with Christ? How does you rejecting that affect the blessings that God is trying to give them? If you don't need it, instead of rejecting it, accept it with appreciation and pass it on to someone who actually needs it. If someone tries to give you some money, but you don't need some money, take the money. And then when you see somebody in need, pass it on to them. If someone tries to give you a Bible, but you don't need a Bible, take the Bible. And then when you see someone who needs a Bible, pass it on to them. Pass on the gift. Let the gift keep on giving. But no matter what, you have to put your pride aside. You have to get out of the mindset of thinking that you have to work hard to receive things. And you have to stop being disobedient because you feel like it's not God who's speaking to you. When it comes to receiving, you have to be open to receiving everything, not just blessings, but words of instructions and wisdom. You have to be open to receiving things through other people, and you have to be open to receiving opportunities and open doors. And if you want to learn how to start receiving today, you have to ask God to help you take on his mentality. Instead of rejecting it, show gratitude for it. Seek God for confirmation and use discernment. And if you don't need what's being given to you, take it and pass it on. So my assignment for you today is I want you to pray and ask God to take on his mentality. And I want you to think of one idea or instruction that you have and ask God for confirmation over it. But that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe so that you get a notification every time a new episode is released. Also, leave a review. And if you want to stay connected to me, follow me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Prospering with Christ. But that's all I have for you today, and I will see you next week.